hello from our freezing porch. My name is Kika and today I'm going to show you how to create the Pride Pearls cardigan, which I am currently wearing. This is definitely one of my most proud moments as a knit designer. The Pride Pearls cardigan got its name from the Jane Austen classic Pride and Prejudice.
May I present my friend, Mr. Darcy?
You are very welcome to Hertfordshire, I am sure, sir. And I hope you have come here eager to dance, as your friend has.
Thank you, madam. I rarely dance.
And here in this design, it has a very romantic vibe. Everything really started with this tie string. I wanted to make a cardigan that featured some kind of tie string. I already made one cardigan last summer where I kind of tried a bit of a similar thing, but ended up not choosing that. So, but in this one, I mean, now I am 8 months pregnant, so it looks a little funky on me, but you have to imagine it sort of with a waistline here. This is a cardigan that is maybe not so beginner friendly. I would say this is maybe more of an advanced pattern, but with the pattern and with this video, I am sure you can definitely complete this. If you've done some projects before and maybe you're looking for some new fun challenges and some new techniques to try out, then you can watch this video first. Download the pattern that I have both at kutubakika.com in my web shop and also in my Ravelry store. So definitely this video works hand in hand, more as a guide for the pattern and to complete this project successfully. I've definitely been on a mission to just make more cardigans, especially with the pregnancy. And also I just feel like cardigans are so versatile garments. You can style them in different ways. If you get warm, you can open it up. And this one is a really kind of lightweight. So I used 2 strands of this gorgeous fluffy alpaca silk yarn with 1 strand of merino. So I used a US 4mm US 6 needle to create this, and you have a very kind of decorative, oh, it's like snowing on me. We have a very decorative, this bobble stitch motif pattern here. This is also where the name kind of pearls comes from, both here in the front and also then on the back. In this tutorial, I will again go through step by step the different pieces. I do recommend having the pattern with you, or you can watch this video first and kind of see if you're up for it. But again, as I mentioned in the beginning, even though this is not a beginner project, if you've done some projects, some sweaters, you're up for a challenge, you want to maybe learn some new techniques, I think this is a really great project for that. Also, the pattern, of course, everything is written out really clearly, but it's actually, once you kind of get going, it kind of makes sense. Like, you probably won't have to look at the charts that much anymore after a while, because you'll kind of see what's going on and you'll learn the pattern repetition. So you actually don't have to be staring at the charts and everything all the time, but it's of course there as a guide and showing you exactly how to do things. I would love to see your projects. If you do decide to make one, then you can use the hashtag Pride Pearls Cardigan over on Instagram, and also on Ravelry you can browse the projects that different knitters have completed of this one to get inspired and maybe get some ideas for yarn combos. Alright, without further ado, let's get right into it. The pattern starts by creating the upper back, so we'll be casting on stitches here for the upper back. And then we have some increases here, and we start to work this diamond shape, and we work that for, well, as long as the pattern specifies for the different sizes. Then you have a bit of straight here still, and then after you work the entire upper back, you leave those stitches on hold, and then stitches are picked up for the fronts here separately and worked, and then there are also some increases here for the neckline. Then once that is done, everything is joined together on a circular needle, and then the body from here to here is just worked flat, so everything together. And you do have here under the underarms, you cast on some new stitches here, you just continue this pattern You have some decreases here just to get that seamlessly into the pattern. And then you just pick up stitches for the sleeves. They're worked in the round. And you have some decreases here to create this really nice balloony effect. And then we have the front edge plackets, which are worked double knitted and just creates such a nice finish, makes the whole thing come together, gives it structure. And then you have the collar, and then lastly you have this tie string here, which is just threaded through. There aren't any actual holes made here, so if you don't want to have that, you can also wear it without this tie string. For the Pride and Pearls cardigan, I definitely recommend that you block this, wet block it, because this fabric is very, very squishy, so it will bloom out quite a bit when you wet block it. So that is definitely something I recommend that you do. Of course, if you don't want it to grow a lot, you could also just steam block it in that case.
Let's begin knitting the Pride and Pearls cardigan. For my second sample, I'm going to be knitting it in 2 strands of fingering weight yarn. This one, Sunday by Sunnes Garn, and I'm going to pair that together with 1 strand of a more lace weight yarn. So this is called Alva by Filcolana. So instead of using a silk mohair that I would usually do, I'm instead substituting that with 1 strand of this alpaca yarn. So it's very, very thin, and I'm gonna hold all these 3 strands together. So that's kind of equal, I would say, a decade weight yarn. So this is, for example, a double Sunday by Sunnes Garn. So you could choose that if you just want to work with, for example, 1 strand, or like in my first sample, I had 2 strands of silk mohair and then 1 strand of a fingering weight yarn. So you can choose what kind of combination you want. That will of course affect a little bit the overall fabric, but I'm gonna choose these, and I'm guessing this will produce a more dense and squishy fabric than my first sample. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it affects the overall drape and look of the cardigan. Let's begin. First, we're gonna cast on stitches for the upper back. I'm gonna be using a 4mm, so that's a US 6 needle. I'm gonna use a circular needle. And first, we're just gonna cast on stitches for the back with the backwards loop cast on method. We're gonna be picking up stitches, so these aren't gonna be visible, but the backwards loop method, or the standard cast on method, I think it's also called, is just a good one to use for this. And you can cast on quite loosely. I'm gonna be working size medium, so I'm gonna cast on X amount of stitches for size medium. Check the pattern, how many stitches you need. I'll cast on the amount of stitches I need. Now, before continuing with the setup rows, we're gonna be placing removable stitch markers here in the last and in the first stitch, and this will mark where we're gonna be picking up stitches later on for our fronts. So I'm just gonna be placing one of these little removable stitch markers into the actual stitch here. So these 2 markers aren't carried along the work, they're just here to place, because it's sometimes a little hard to see later on when we have all these stitches going on, so then it's just easier to see if you have a marker placed already at the beginning. Before we begin working according to the chart A, we're gonna be working 2 setup rows, and check depending on what size you're knitting for which setup row instructions you're gonna use. I'm using size medium, or I'm knitting size medium. So I'm gonna do 2 setup rows starting on the right side. So first we knit 5, and then we have these 2 setup rows before we begin with the actual chart. On these 2 first setup rows, we have just some knit stitches and some purl stitches, but then we do have knit 1 through the back loop and purl 1 through the back loop. So I'll just show you what the knit 1 through the back loop means. So next I'm going to do knit 1 TBL is the abbreviation. So instead of knitting that here from the front loop, like you would normally go in here, I'm gonna knit it here from the back loop instead. So I insert my needle here in sort of the back leg and just wrap yarn around and take it through. So that is what you do when you see knit 1 through the back loop. And then I work these last stitches, I have a purl, and then we always have 5 stitches of stockinette stitch here at both ends, which means that we're gonna knit those on all the right side rows and purl them all the wrong side rows. Setup row number 1 done, so let's do setup row number 2. So we're working this flat, which means we need to turn the work around. On setup row number 2, you'll see you'll have purl 1 through the back loop. So let me show you that if you're not familiar with it. So as we would normally, you just bring the working yarn front. And now instead of purling this like I would here from the front loop, normally I'm gonna instead go through the back loop. So that means this back loop that is here. So I insert my needle through this back loop, and then I wrap the yarn around my working needle, and then I use my thumb and I bring it through. And I worked purl 1 through the back loop, and then I just continue. All right, so now I've completed my 2 setup rows. That means we're ready to begin working chart A. Chart A, row number 1. So when you're gonna work chart A, you're always gonna knit the first and last 5 stitches on each right side row, and you're gonna purl the first and last 5 stitches on each wrong side row. So first we're just gonna knit 5, 4, and 5, and then we begin working according to chart A, and the gray box says don't count them as stitches, so we're gonna start from where we have an increase, and we have a left leaning increase, so let's do that. Make 1 L, so make 1 left. So we're gonna be inserting our needle from the front, locate this strand here between our needles, and just grab that from the front onto the left needle, and then I can go ahead and knit this through the back loop. So I twist that strand, and then I'm just gonna work exactly according to row number 1 of chart A1, and I'm gonna show you how to work the 5-stitch bobble next. The 5-stitch bobble. So when you see this symbol, you need to do a little bobble, and this is the way you do it in this pattern. So there are many ways to do bobbles, but this is the way I like to do it. So we're gonna first create 5 loops into the same stitch. So I go into the stitch and I wrap yarn around, bring it through, and then I just simply use my working yarn and do a yarn over. So I just simply take my yarn up and over my working needle. Then I go through the same stitch again, so this is the 3rd time, wrap yarn around it, take it through. So now we have 3 loops here of my working needle. Then we do a yarn over again. So my working yarn, take it up and over the working needle. So we have 4 loops, we still need 1. So one more time, we go in, wrap the yarn around. And now you can see we have 5 loops here on the working needle. So now I can go ahead and just let that go from the left needle. Now I'm gonna do 1 more yarn over on my working needle, like that. And now I want to transfer all of these loops over this yarn over. So with my left needle, I'm just gonna 1 by 1 transfer all of them up and over that last yarn over I did. That's the first stitch done, the second one, and obviously you don't have to do it 1 by 1. It can be quicker to maybe take 2 at a time. So these last 2, I'm gonna try to see if I can grab them both and wrap them over like that. And you can already see what a nice little bubble it creates. And then because sometimes there are these like holes appearing, I find it nice to attach it. So usually what I do, you can see here, just underneath the bubble, we have this strand here. And I'm gonna use my right needle, so my working needle, go take it behind the work and come up here between my bubble and that strand. Go up and over, so I take it with me. So I get it onto my needle. And now I have sort of created an extra stitch. So then I'm gonna, this bobble stitch here, I'm just gonna transfer that, pass it over that strand we just picked up. So I pass that over, and now I have secured my bubble in place. I find that this creates really nice and plump little bubbles. You can also do this with a crochet hook, but I just find that this is a little bit quicker when you're knitting, so you don't have to switch between tools all the time. Now I have 5 stitches left on row number 1, so I know I need to do an increase here. This time I'm gonna do make one right. So this time we go in through the back of this loop here between these stitches, and I'm gonna knit it from the front again to make sure that I twist that stitch so we don't get a hole. And then I knit these last 5 stitches. I've now begun row number 2 on the wrong side, so I've purled my first 5 stitches, and this time, because we're on the wrong side, we're gonna make one left but purlwise. So to make one left purlwise here at the beginning, I'm gonna again bring my left needle from the front here through that strand between my stitches. And now instead of knitting it, I'm gonna just bring my working yarn front and I'm gonna purl it, and I'm gonna purl it from the back loop so I get this stitch twisted like that, and then I can let it go. And then I just continue following row number 2 for chart A on the wrong side. So here we have some purl on through the back loops and some knit and some purl stitches. Now I only have 5 purl stitches left, so I'm gonna again do an increase. This time I'm gonna make one right purlwise. So this time we go in from the back through this strand, and then I bring my working yarn front, and I can just go ahead and purl this from the front loop like I would normally do. Like that, and then I just purl my last 5 stitches. Next, I'm going to show you how to do the cables that are worked in the Pride Pearls cardigan. So we have some cables that are always worked over 3 stitches. So either we have a 1x2 right cross cable or then a 1x2 left cross cable. So that means that there's always going to be one stitch that is going to move either to the left or to the right. So let me first show you how to do the 1x2 right cross cable. For this, you can do a double pointed needle or a cable needle. There's also a way you can do this without any handy tools, but first I'll show you just how to do it with the cable needle. So the 1x2 right cross starts by transferring 2 stitches onto the cable needle, and we're going to keep them in the back. So I'm just going to transfer them or slip them onto my cable or double pointed needle, keep them in the back of the work. Then I knit this 1 stitch, and then I knit the 2 stitches that I have here on my double pointed needle. And now you can see that I've twisted the stitches so that this 1 stitch is crossing to the right. Now, method number 2 is actually to do this without any cable needle or double pointed needle. Oh, no, I lost a stitch. No, I did. So for the right cross cable, we're first gonna knit this stitch here. So I'm gonna, without slipping these 2 first stitches, I'm just gonna work this stitch. So I knit it as I would normally, go in through that 3rd stitch, wrap yarn around and take it through. And then I knit these 2 first stitches that I have on my left needle. So I knit the first one, and now I can go ahead and slip that one. And then I knit this second one, and I can slip that one, and then I can slip all of them. And as you can see, we produce the same result. So we have that 1 stitch crossing over to the right. So this is just a bit of a faster way, so you don't have to always grab your double pointed or cable needle when you're working these cables. Next we have the left crossing 1x2 cable. So this time again, first I'll show you how to work it with a double pointed needle. So this time we're gonna transfer 1 stitch onto the cable needle or double pointed needle, keep in front of the work. Then we knit 2. And then I knit the 1 stitch here from my double pointed needle. And then we have, again, as a result, this 1 stitch is crossing over to the left over these 2 stitches. Method number 2, so again, the method where you don't have to use a double pointed needle at all when you're doing your 1x2 left cross, is that you start by going in here and you first work these 2 stitches, and then lastly you work this first stitch. So we begin by knitting these stitches, but we kind of have to do it here from the back now. So I go in through this 2nd stitch, wrap yarn around, take it through. So I've knitted that one, but I still keep all 3 stitches on the left needle. Then I did the 2nd one, or the third one actually. Wrap yarn around and bring it through. So I've been here on the back side. Now I go here to the front with all of this and I knit this first stitch, wrap yarn around, take it through, and now I can go ahead and all of these 3 stitches slip from the left to the right needle. And there you can see that we have now created a left cross, so that third stitch is actually worked so that it crosses over these 2 stitches. So there you have 2 different methods of creating these cables that I work both on the back of the cardigan and also on the front, but they're just worked over 3 stitches, and here we have 3 plus 3 here side by side.
I have now worked my upper back. So first we did according to chart A, and here we placed these markers here on the cast on edge. All of these increases according to chart A, and then also increases still according to chart B, and this will depend a little bit on what size you're working. And then after chart B, you will have placed markers here at both ends where the increases end. So this is going to help us know from where we start picking up stitches now for both of the right and the left front. Then we have worked according to chart C, so everything stays the same. And here in chart C, you have these markers just marking where you work this seed stitch rib. These are in a way optional because you can at this point already see it, but just to make sure, so you can have those. So all in all, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, here 5 and 6, 7 and 8 markers all together. Next, we're gonna pick up stitches for the right front. And the right front is when you have the cast on edge facing upwards and you have the right side facing towards you. So the right side is this side. And I'm gonna be using a 4mm needle again, so US 6 needle. I placed these stitches now on hold, and I'm gonna grab some new yarn. So I've cut the yarn here. So now I have this marker that we place after completing chart B. So I know where I'm gonna start picking up stitches, and we can go ahead and remove this marker now. And then I'm gonna go ahead and start picking up stitches here from this edge. Here I'm picking up stitches, pretty much 1 stitch per row, and I'm going to try to follow the same knit column so that I get a really nice and neat edge. I've picked up stitches all the way to my stitch marker, but I actually, for some reason, am still missing 2. So even though I am at my stitch marker, I'm gonna still be picking up 2 more. So from that first one, and then a little bit here stealing from the edge, or maybe go twice in there, so that I get the exact amount of stitches I need according to the pattern. So that's it. Now we picked up stitches for the right front. Then we're gonna work 1 setup row. So we're gonna turn the work around. So this setup row is worked on the wrong side, and it will depend a little bit on what size you're working. So follow the pattern for this. So we're gonna work 1 setup row, and then we're gonna start working according to chart D1. So for all the sizes, we first have 3 purl stitches, and then it depends a little bit on what size you are working, how it continues, and then we're gonna also end up with 2 purl stitches. On our setup row, we do have some stitch markers again that we're gonna place. You can place the ones that you removed when you were picking up stitches, and these are just gonna mark the seed stitch rib for the pattern. After completing the setup row, you have your stitch markers for sizes XS and size small. You only have 1 stitch marker. All other sizes, you have 2 stitch markers. And now we're gonna start working according to chart D1. And you always have some stockinette stitches here at the beginning and at the end. So just remember to do that. Those are not included in the chart, but for all the row and in the instructions, it says exactly, so you won't forget to work those. So row number 1, I'm first going to knit my first 2 stitches. Then I'm gonna work the pattern repeat until my stitch marker. So this is for all of the sizes. I'm gonna work the pattern repeat that you'll see in the chart D1. Purl 1, I knit 2, knit 1, purl 1, knit 2, then I slip my first marker, and then I'm gonna work again according to chart D1. So again, stitches now 5 to 31 for all of the sizes, and there's 2 different charts for depending on which size you are working. Now I work the stitches 5 to 31, and then I'm again gonna repeat the pattern repeat until my marker. That is row number 1 complete. So you're just gonna work according to chart D1, and you always have these pattern repeats here, but that is the seed stitch rib, so it's pretty intuitive, but just in the beginning it's maybe good to have these stitch markers here. And then we're going to be shaping the neckline. So for the right side, the neckline is going to be shaped here on the right side with some increases, and they are exactly the same increases as we did here for the upper back, so you already know them. So you are welcome to just go ahead and work this. And after that, when you've completed the right front, you're going to be picking up stitches for the left front here, this time from this stitch marker all the way to the outer edge here to the other marker, and work according to chart D2. Now I've worked both of the upper fronts, and it has come time to join everything to work the lower body. Here I have now worked first my right front and then the left front, and you can see here the neckline shaping. So these are done according to chart D1 and then D2 in your chosen size, and you have some pattern repeats here. So depending on what size you're working, you're gonna have a different amount of stitches here for the different sizes. And once you have completed both the upper fronts, we're gonna now join everything to work the body. So to work the body, first we're gonna knit the left front stitches, cast on stitches for the underarm, then we're gonna continue work these upper back stitches, cast on stitches here for the underarm, and then lastly work these stitches. So let's do that next. In this next step, we're also gonna be placing some new markers. So I have 4 different markers, and I have them in different colors, but that's not really necessary. And we've had some markers here in the pattern to mark these pattern repeats. I mean, now we're so far along, so it's kind of optional if you want to keep the markers there or not, because you can kind of see the pattern already. But if you want to keep them there, you can keep them. That's kind of optional. So this is now the joining row on the right side, and I'm gonna start first working knit 3, and then I'm gonna work row 51 of chart D2 to the last 2 stitches here. Here I've had a marker to mark these pattern repeats, but I'm actually gonna go ahead and remove that because I don't really need it, because I can kind of see where I am and what I need to do for each row. Now I only have 2 stitches left, so here I'm gonna be placing a marker. These are gonna be the stitches that we're gonna then work according to the chart E1 and chart E2. So I'm gonna knit 2, and then I'm gonna be casting on 11 new stitches with the backwards loop cast on method. So I grab my yarn and cast on 11 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And next I'm gonna join the upper back stitches, so I need to first transfer them onto my working needle. Okay, I've got all my upper back stitches on my needle. So now I can go ahead and I'm gonna first knit these 5 stitches that we worked in stockinette stitch here. So I'm first gonna just start knitting those. Knit 5, make sure to tighten that first one. 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then I'm gonna be placing another stitch marker so that I know where I have these. And yeah, we're gonna work these in a bit of a different way. There's gonna be a chart. We're gonna decrease some stitches here. And then I'm just gonna work the upper back according to chart C. So just as we've established, working here the seed stitch rib and this diamond shape pattern. And once I come here to the end, I'm gonna transfer all of these stitches, so my right front stitches again to my needle, and cast on stitches here. So exactly as we did here for the first underarm. I've now completed the body. So let me show you what we did here for the underarms. So we had these 5 knit stitches or stockinette stitches. So all of these
according to the pattern and the charts, you're going to be decreasing here. So you see that this integrates into this seed stitch rib, and similarly here on the other side. So in the pattern, you'll have a chart E1 and E2 that shows you how to do this, but it's very simple, just some knit togethers and some SSKs to make this. So then you can just continue in the seed stitch rib here. In the pattern, you have really handy charts showing how many times you'll complete this big diamond shape here for the back. So I've worked size medium, so I've done it 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can of course customize this if you want it to be longer. And after then, I completed the body, and these small diamond shapes, they always are 2 diamond shapes per 1 big one. And then I've switched to a smaller size needle, a 3mm needle that's a US 2.5, and worked in a twisted rib stitch. So I've knit 1 through the back loop on the right side and purled 1, and then on the wrong side I've always purled 1 through the back loop for this twisted stitch. And then lastly, I've used an Italian bind off. I'll put a link below to a tutorial for the Italian bind off if you're not familiar with it. Now that we have the body complete, we can work the sleeves. I've already worked 1 sleeve, so here we're just going to be picking up stitches along the edge here, and the sleeves are worked in the round, and they're just worked in the seed stitch rib. There are no decreases, only here at the end, just before the cuff, there's a lot of decreases to create this really nice kind of balloony shape. Let's work the sleeves. I'm gonna be working on a smaller circular needle. I'm gonna use the same 4mm US 6, and either you can use a 60cm or a 40cm cable. I think I'm gonna do this one because it's still a pretty big circumference, so I think I'm gonna be fine. Let's pick up stitches for the armhole opening. So here, the half of the armhole opening is sometimes easier, so because we have to pick up stitches evenly, and it's not exactly 1 stitch per row here. So sometimes it's nice to just check where we have that half point. So you can see that the shoulder seam is a little bit skewed on the back. So I know that here I can place a marker so that I know that half of the stitches I need to be picking up until this point. And then I start here immediately right in the middle of the underarm. So these are the stitches that we cast on when we joined everything for the body. So I'm just grabbing some new yarn and gonna start picking up stitches here evenly. The rhythm I'm going to be picking up stitches here along my edges is approximately picking up 2 stitches per 3 rows. This might not exactly make it, so do keep an eye on it. I haven't calculated for all the sizes exactly how many you need to skip, but approximately picking up. So I pick up 1, and then I skip 1, and again I pick up 2 here, and then I skip 1. But again, as I said, do keep counting. I'm approaching my halfway marker, and I still need to pick up like 13 stitches. So that means I need to pick up the pace a little bit. Can't skip so many. So it's just good to make those kind of adjustments as you go along, so you make sure that it's evenly picked up. So the important thing to note here is that the point where it is the half point is actually not where the shoulder seam is. So the shoulder seam kind of will be slouching a little bit more on the back. So that's just important to remember here. Now I've picked up stitches all the way around, so I'm going to be placing a beginning of round marker, and then we're going to start working the seed stitch rib in the round, so it's going to be a little bit different than working it flat. So first I'm just going to be repeating knit 3, purl 1 all the way around. I've completed round number 1. I'm here at my beginning of round marker. So for the next round, I'm gonna start by purling 1. I knit 1, and then I purl 2. And then I repeat this, so actually it becomes 3 purls and knit 1. So then for the entire sleeve, we just repeat these 2 rounds until we get the desired length. And then before starting the cuff, you're gonna be decreasing so that you only have half the stitches, and then switching to a smaller size needle, and again, bind off the same way you bound off the body. Next, let's knit the front edge plackets of the cardigan. So we're going to be picking up stitches here first from the left side. So when you have the right side facing you and the cardigan, the front facing you, this is going to be the left side that we're going to start with. Then we're going to do the same for the right side. For this, I'm going to be using a 3mm, so that's a US 2.5 silk circular needle to pick up stitches. And then you can also use a double pointed needle, same size, or you can just work the circular needle to work the double knitted front edge placket. Here we have these stitch markers that we placed after the increases of the neckline. So first we're going to start by picking up stitches here from the left side. So we're going to start here at the bottom, and then we're going to be picking up stitches all the way until we have this stitch marker. Grab some new yarn, and then we're going to start by picking up stitches here along the edge, and we're going to pick up 1 stitch per row here, or per stitch. It depends a little bit how many stitches you're going to have depending on how long you made your cardigan, so depending on what size you knitted. But here I just start by picking up stitches from each row or each stitch here. All right, I've now picked up stitches all the way along this edge until my stitch marker, so I can go ahead and remove this marker now, like that. And then I'm gonna be just breaking this yarn or cutting this yarn, and then we are gonna start working this double knitted edge placket here from the bottom of the left side. So I'm gonna actually turn it so that I have the wrong side facing me. And then I'm going to be joining in new yarn, and I'm going to be casting on some new stitches here. I have my new yarn. I'm going to leave a tail, gonna face it that direction. So here I have my working yarn in this direction, and then I'm just going to grab it with my thumb and index finger. And first, I'm just going to place my working needle here on top of it, and then just twist. So now we're going to be casting on some new stitches with the Italian cast on method. And again, remember, we're on the wrong side here. First, let's cast on a knit stitch. For the knit stitch, we're going to go under first. So we go under the second yarn, up in the middle, over the top yarn, and bring it all the way underneath. So that's a knit stitch cast on. Then we're going to cast on a purl stitch. So this time we go over instead, under both of the yarns, and then I go from the bottom here instead through the middle and down and under again. So let's do this once more. So for the knit stitch, we go under, bring it in the middle and over the top yarn and grab it all the way. For the purl stitch, we go from above, bring under both, from the middle, down and under. Again, a knit stitch, so we go under, through the middle, over and through, and purl stitch, under both, up in the middle, and under the top yarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. One more knit stitch, so again, under, middle, top, and bring it through, and again a purl stitch, under both from the top, middle, and through. All right, so now we have our 9 stitches. I'm just gonna twist these yarns, make sure I have my working yarn here, and now we're gonna turn the work around so that we have the right side facing us. So now we're ready to begin the double knitted edge placket here. So I'm now on the right side again. I have my new cast on stitches here. I've grabbed just a double pointed needle. So now we're going to begin by working these stitches. So first I'm just going to be knitting this first stitch. And next I'm going to slip one with the yarn in front. So I'm going to bring the yarn front and slip this just purlwise from my left to my right needle. And then I repeat, I knit one, and then I again bring the yarn front and slip this next stitch without knitting it. Knit one, bring the yarn front and slip this next stitch. and then I knit one, slip the next one with the yarn in front, and now I have my last stitch that I cast on. So this last stitch I'm going to be knitting through the back loop together with one of the stitches from these stitches that we picked up. So I just go in through here, through the back loops of these both stitches, wrap some yarn around and knit those two together. And that's the row number 1 complete. Next we're gonna turn the work around. So row number 2 starts with slip 1 with yarn in front. So again, we just slip this first stitch purlwise with the yarn held in front. And then I knit one, slip one with yarn in front, and without knitting that one, and knit one. And essentially, I repeat this all the way across. Then I have knit one, and then this row on the wrong side, it ends with a slip one with yarn in front, and then we go ahead and turn again. So now we just continue working these 2 rows until all of the stitches are worked. So on each right side row, we're just gonna slip all of these purl stitches with the yarn in front, and then always when you come to your last knit stitch here, we're gonna knit that together with 1 stitch from the picked up stitches. All right, I have now completed both the front edge plackets and also the collar. So here I did this double knitted front edge plackets for both the right and the left side. And then I bound off using the Italian bind off method, which I'll put a link in the description below to another video where I show that in more detail. And then I picked up stitches here from along the neckline, also including these front knitted or double knitted front edge plackets, and knitted that to double length, and then I just folded and attached it by hand sewing here on the inside. Then I have gone ahead and blocked my full cardigan. It really bloomed out the fabric and it grew quite a lot, which I'm actually happy about. And then lastly, I've been attaching these snap buttons. I used quite small ones. I didn't have bigger ones, but I think that works pretty well. I used 7 snap buttons all in all, but you can use however many you feel fit. Now the only thing we need to do still is the I-cord tie strap that we are going to then be attaching here at the waist. So let me show you how to do that. To make the I-cord string, I'm going to be using 2 double pointed needle, 3mm in size, so that's a US 2.5, and then just the same yarn that I used to work the cardigan. And first I'm just going to do a slip knot, and then I'm going to be casting on 3 stitches with the backwards loop cast on method. And I'm actually going to cast on 3 additional. I want 3 all in all, but I'm actually going to then drop off this first one because that one has this kind of knot and I don't want that. So I'm going to just be dropping that off so that I have now 3 stitches here on my needle. Now normally you would now start to work this from here, so we would turn it, but we're actually not going to do this. So this is going to be sort of a tube. So we're going to actually, after you cast on your stitches and the yarn is coming here now from this last stitch, going to slide all of the stitches back here to the right, and then I'm going to be starting and knitting here the first stitch here, and my yarn is coming there from the last stitch. So this is going to be creating sort of a hollow tube, which is going to be this I-cord. So I knit all of these stitches, 3, and to pull that a little bit, and then again I transfer or slide all of my stitches from the left here back to the right, and then again I repeat. So then again I knit, and again the working yarn is coming from the last stitch, and this first one I make sure to tighten it a little bit extra, and then I just knit all of these stitches like that, and then again slide from left to right. And then I'm just going to be repeating this until I have, varies a little bit on which size you're working, how long the string you want to be. It's also a little bit of a matter of preference. I'm going to work mine to that I have approximately 150 centimeters. So that's like 1.5 meters approximately. But it also does stretch out a little bit when you wear it. So after working for a bit, this is how it's going to look. So you can see it creates this really nice sort of tube that is kind of hollow, but it's really stretchy and it will just fit really nicely with this. So now when I have approximately the length I need, I'm just gonna be knitting all these stitches together. So knit 3 together, insert my needle into all 3 stitches, wrap some yarn around and just bring that through. And then I can just go ahead and pull the yarn through. The last step is to thread this I-cord through here, so approximately 1 centimeter, so a little bit below here where we have the ribbing. And the reason we didn't do any holes here is that maybe you want to sometimes wear this without the string, so then you can totally do that. And also because knitted fabric is so stretchy, so it's totally possible to go through here without making any special holes. I have actually left a little bit of still that tail so that I could thread this whole string onto like a really big tapestry needle. This is this plastic one. And now I'm going to start here from the right side, go into the wrong side. And then I'm just going to start to go through here and just make sure that I end up also here then, so I come out on the right side. So from the right side to the wrong side, and from the wrong side to the right side, all the way across the entire cardigan. And then the last step is just to weave in this end as well. Gonna weave in my end, take it through kind of this hollow tube here a little bit further up, and then secure it by going first up quite a bit, and then I'm gonna change direction and go down a little bit. All right, and there we have it. Pride Pearls cardigan number 2 is done. Now let's try it on.
Here is the final result, my second Pride Pearls cardigan. I have blocked this sample. That is definitely something I recommend doing just because this fabric is so squishy, so it will just be able to relax, grow quite a bit. Of course, if you're happy with the fit, maybe steam block it instead. So just soak a kitchen towel, squeeze out the water, and then by using an iron you kind of get like that steam. You put that on the cardigan and use the iron, and then you get this steam instead if you don't want to wet block your cardigan. I really love how it turned out in this color. This is just a color that I know I'm gonna be able to wear with so many different things. And as I said in the beginning, I am already dreaming of making one in maybe a blue color or some kind of more like color, because both these nails that I've done are more in kind of a romantic and kind of neutral shade. So it would just be super interesting to see one in more of like a saturated color. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial, or maybe I should call it a guide instead. I hope you found it valuable. I will put the links to download the pattern below, so you can get it both at kutavakiko.com and also in my Ravelry store. And do use the hashtag Pride and Pearls Cardigan if you decide to make one, and use that hashtag on Instagram so we can come and see and get inspired. Also on Ravelry, I know a lot of people have posted pictures of their projects, finished ones and also in process. It's just always super interesting and inspiring to see other knitters and what kind of color combos and yarn combos people are choosing for their projects. And as always, if you'd like to come and say hi, I'm over at kutavakiko on Instagram. I share lots of things I'm working on over there, so I'd love to connect over there as well. And yeah, that's it for me for this one. I will see you in the next video. Take care and bye bye.